So I just got done watching the season finale of The Penguin, and I think I stand with most people and say this was a fantastic series. Obviously, so far, the critics have loved it and they've given it high ratings. Now, to be fair, I don't really care what the critics say about it. I care more. Do I think it's good? Does the average viewer like it? And so far, it has been a yes. Now, the interesting thing was, I heard some reports that the ending wasn't going to be very good. And so we're going to get to that. There's going to be spoilers. So we'll give you 5 seconds to click off the video if you don't want spoilers. But we're going to start just by, look, we're not going to go episode by episode. We're not going to break down each event because there's just so much that happened in this. But I just want to start by, like I said, pointing out one thing, which is the ending was not bad. I don't know where that came from, but I was reading a bunch of stuff on different news sites, and I heard reading on Twitter and stuff like that that the reviewers were saying that maybe the ending wasn't great. That's just not the case. So we're going to put that away right off the bat. So let's get into the review. Like I said, this isn't going to be a review in which we go through each episode piece by piece. This is just going to be an overall look on what we saw. So, one of the best things about The Penguin, I think, was how it was structured and how it built. So, when you're first watching it in the first couple episodes, you're really you're a little bit confused. You don't really know, you're trying to figure out, is Sophia Falcone actually crazy? Is the Penguin actually evil? Like, what is it exactly that's going on? Now, the Penguin is not necessarily a good person. He's certainly corrupt and he's certainly a sleazebag, but you also know, okay, this entire film is about people that are sleazebags. So you don't know, by comparison, if they're a sleazebag. And with Sophia, and by the way, maybe people did know this going in if they knew lore about this and had, read, if this is like comic book lore or something like that. I had personally not ever known about any of this. So if it is and you knew about it, you would have a different view. Personally, I did not know. So this was all new to me. And so, kind of not knowing that, it made it tough to almost judge, like, who are we rooting for here? Like, if it turned out that everybody else was corrupt and the Penguin wasn't, then the Penguin would be the person that you're really rooting for throughout. If it turned out that everybody was corrupt but Sophia, then Sophia is the one that you're rooting for. And so that kind of mystery makes it tough. And then, of course, you add in Vic, who, early is a part of this. Well, by adding in Vic, now you have another character who you are certainly rooting for because he's someone who, out of everybody in the film, he's someone who is dealt a really bad hand and then is kind of forced into this by the Penguin. So all of this stuff is kind of going through your mind, and you're watching it. It's enjoyable, and there are so many twists and turns. Whether it's when she kills basically the entirety of the family, huge twist and turn. When you find out that she wasn't actually the hangman and that it was her father that was doing this stuff, that's a twist and turn. They dedicated an entire episode to showcasing how Sophia Falcone became who she was. And that episode, I think, I didn't check the ratings on the rest of them, but that one at the time was the highest rated episode because it completely answered all the questions. I had a bunch of questions like, is she actually nuts? Is she actually crazy? Or was she framed? And it turned out both were true. On one hand, she clearly is not right. And on the other hand, you can completely understand why, because she was framed for this thing that never happened. Or was she, well, I guess she wasn't framed for something that never happened. She was framed for something that did happen, but she did not commit. And then she's going through this terrible, terrible stuff at Arkham, and then she gets out, and everybody's looking at her like she did something. She knows she didn't, but you can see the break. And then, of course, she ends up killing the whole family. And then she realizes, wait a minute, I'm turning into exactly what I did not want to. And that was another powerful moment. But then what happens? Well, she breaks again, right? And now she's going overboard trying to not be like that and just to make the penguin feel the same way that she did. And so that's kind of her whole story. And you begin to see you know, in some ways obviously you feel terrible for her, but then she just starts getting other people involved and hurting other people that are involved, and you go, okay, there's something very deep that we're getting into. Now on the penguin side, you know, the penguin for big chunks of this entire thing, you just don't know a ton about. You just know he's a guy that is corrupt. You know he's a sleazebag, but once again, you just don't know how bad is this guy. And then there's one episode, and that was the last episode, not the last one in the thing, but the second to last one, where it all changes. And that portion is when you learn about his childhood. That puts everything into perspective. Now, if that episode happened in the beginning, you'd look at it and you'd go, God, the Penguins is like the worst. You know, that's how you would be feeling about it for the entirety of the thing. In this case, you're getting it at the end. So you don't really know this whole story until the end. And then you realize this guy is not only one of the worst in the whole thing, right? I mean, he skyrockets when you find out that he was, you know, he ended up killing his own siblings. He skyrockets to the top of the when we're judging who is the worst guy in this whole thing, right? Who's the worst person in this whole thing and who you're rooting for. And by the end, this is maybe and you know, look, this is how DC does it, so you're not this isn't necessarily a complaint, but by the end of this thing, I don't know who you're rooting for. You know, there's just no one that you're like, well, I hope they win. You know, you're just hoping they all lose. And in the end, in the final episode, you know, you kind of see that obviously the penguin ends up coming out on top, and it's in the best way possible for him. You know, he masterminds a lot of this stuff with the help of, you know, people around him, but it just it you know, he ends up winning. And it is cool because now obviously Sophia's still alive and the penguin's still alive. So right now, that last scene, the penguin obviously he's as delusional as he's ever been. He's I mean, he's just a creep all around. And that's the last scene, but it's a complete they're complete opposites, right? He's the most powerful person and in the most powerful state he's ever been. And Sophia is in jail in Arkham, back to the bottom, back to the, you know, she's back at bottom of the totem pole, right where she didn't want to be. So this is setting up for future stuff, and I don't know if there's another series of this that's going to come out. I don't know if this is going to tie into Batman 2, but I'll say there's a lot here. There's a lot to take away from it, and then obviously one of the toughest scenes to watch is when he kills Vic. I mean, that is just that was the most shocking out of everything. You know, you would have thought that that would have never happened, but once again, you realize quickly that in this whole thing, the Penguin is the most corrupt. He's the most willing to do whatever it takes, and you know, and he's been that way from the beginning, because as it shows. So that's our review. Let us know what you think in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time.